And they said this was unfilmable.
This might have proven them right.
Do you think so?
At the time. So
apparently the new ones are like super good.
I avoided seeing them yet so that we could talk about this, but that is going to be something I'm doing in the next little bit because I really want to see it now.
That's going to be something you're Dune.
Yes. Nice. I love that. Good pun.
I will say this for the movie. Kyle MacLachlan was really trying. Sting, who the fuck knows?
You're going to give Kyle MacLachlan credit for this shit?
He was trying hard, man. He was trying hard.
It was his first role, I guess. So
it was his first role ever? That can't be true.
It was his first major role.
Surprised he had a second one. No, I'm just kidding. Welcome to Bad Movies and Beer. I'm Cooper.
And I'm Nolan.
And today we are discussing Dune. The original Dune. 1984. Dino De Laurentiis production?
Yeah.
Come on.
When I saw Dino had a hand in this, I was super excited. Also directed by David Lynch.
Yeah. I think he would like to forget this one. He had a bad experience. No, seriously, the studio apparently like they forced him to put stuff in that he didn't want to put in. There's been like 19 different versions of this movie. I don't know if any of them are actually like his vision, but like not a good experience.
That sounds fair. I was kind of questioning some of this stuff based on him. There were certainly shots and aspects of this that I was like, this feels very David Lynch. And then there were other stuff that seemed confusing. Music by Toto.
I didn't notice that. Was it really?
Yeah, all of the music was by Toto. Yet
that's cool.
Also stars Sting and Patrick Stewart.
Well, Sting couldn't star and also do the fucking music.
Why not? His role's pretty small in this.
Were the police still together at that point? They had broken up.
I don't know, but he had a successful solo career. He could have done the music too.
My God, he went to the fields of gold. Yeah, you remember?
I remember.
This is just a massive bit of cinematic and sci-fi history, and we're so happy to be bringing this to you today here on the podcast. Excited to get into it. You are a huge sci-fi nerd.
Yes.
You've read the books.
I'm a big nerd. I have read these books pretty recently too, so I came back to them and reread them when the new Dune movies came out over the last couple years.
Yeah.
I wanted to have that story before watching the new ones. Probably a mistake before watching this one.
Then I'm in good shape because I haven't read shit. I haven't seen any of the movies. I haven't read anything about it. Just went into this thing fresh and fuck, man. I don't know.
What I will say is that probably means it was confusing as fuck, despite them laying everything out on a silver platter.
No spoilers.
Yeah,
I won't say how I felt about it, but yeah.
So we're gonna get there, I guess. I have mixed emotions coming to this because I just read it, but I also want to see it. I see that Dino is the one who created it, and I'm like, this could be exciting. I see the director and some of the stuff here, and I'm like, wow, I think this could be really fun, and I'm hopeful, but I'm also very concerned because I know it was largely panned.
You're describing the experience of everyone who considered seeing this in the 80s. Because this movie bounced around for a long time. It bounced around for a long time before they even tried to film it because there was like no screenwriter could like wrap their head around how to do this and fit it in a reasonable amount of time. And so they just didn't do it until finally they were like, we think we got it now. And they did not. And we're going to get into all of that. But of course, as always, we've paired the movie with a beer. And I'm excited to try this because I have never tried this beer before. This is a pretty new brewery, right? What do we got today?
Yeah, I'm excited too. This is a new brewery for me. This is from the Dune Hopper Brewing Company.
That's an easy one.
Oh, such a connection here, right? That's a slam dunk. They opened this September in Picton in Prince Edward County. So they've been open less than a year. Prince Edward County has kind of become a hotbed of brewing in Ontario.
Yeah, we talked about this in our Judge Dredd episode because we had a beer from 555 Brew, which is also from Picton, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they're really sort of growing out there. So I'm excited to try this. The Solo Trip is a single hopped hazy IPA.
We fucking did an IPA 2 weeks ago with Terror Train. What the fuck?
Well, I mean, single hop is fun because you only have one hop flavoring this, and you really get to see.
So I'm not outnumbered by the hops, is what you're saying.
Well, there's going to be a lot of that single hop, so yeah, it's still going to fill your mouth with all of that hop goodness that you enjoy in there.
The hop bomb in my, as you always say, in my mouth.
Yeah, so I'm excited for this.
Well, that's good. I'm not, obviously, but I have had, I placed an order for this, and they ship throughout Ontario. So if you're in Ontario, by all means, place an order on the Dune Hopper website. I had a couple other beers with them. One was a breakfast stout. That was fucking delicious. They got a nice lager as well. So I'll give this a shot. No big deal. Why don't we crack into it right now? What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
So after the Universal logo, we open with a dedication to Federico De Laurentiis because, of course, as we mentioned, this is a Dino De Laurentiis production. And mark it down, Noel. This is the most excited I will ever be for this movie.
I kind of have high hopes here, too. But I am worried heading in here. I definitely have a sense of dread as we move in and through the credits.
Well, after what I'm sure was intended to be a touching tribute that backfired horribly, we see a shot of outer space as the orchestra comes to life, and the face of a young Virginia Madsen suddenly zooms into frame. She's playing the role of Princess Irulan, and as the princess, she's here to provide some much-needed context for what we're about to see. Essentially, it boils down to an intergalactic conflict over a very precious substance, a spice called melange. As the princess tells it,
"The spice extends life. The spice expands consciousness. The spice is vital to space travel."
Man, is she gay for this spice or what?
So, very quickly into the story of Dune, you learn how important the spice is to the workings of the universe.
Very important to her, apparently.
It definitely is. So she is the narrator. And she's actually not really in the original Dune book very much. She only shows up at the very, very end.
Well, this fits. Because she's in this very little.
You don't meet her. Yeah. So this actually is fairly truthful to the story of the book in that she is the one telling it. And we learn later more about her connection to and history of Dune and the main character we're going to meet.
All right, I'm glad you're here to give us this context. From there, we go even deeper into the sub-menus as a Spacing Guild report breaks down 4 important planets that are going to serve as the backdrop of this conflict. There's Arrakis, a.k.a. Dune, which, as we just learned, is the only planet in the universe where the spice is found. The planet Caladan, home of the House Atreides. The planet Gedi Prime, home of the House Harkonnen. And Catane, which, as we also just learned, is the home of Princess Irulan's father, the Emperor of the known universe. We are only 5 minutes into this thing, and there's already a lot to keep track of. And spoiler alert, this will not become easier to sort out as this thing goes along.
I completely understand why you feel that way. They are upfront giving a ton of exposition and setting up the world of Dune, the universe that we have here. For them to upfront all of this shit is a bit of an insult to people who have read the book, but I think necessary for people entering. It's one of those things where if you don't know the story that you're about to watch brought to visual and screen, you need this shit. But if you've read the story and had it told to you in a different way that introduces you to the characters first, and then plows through and you learn the sort of dynamics of the universe and why they happen throughout. I understood why it was happening, but it felt kind of strange. In fact, the next section we're about to transition into doesn't happen until the second book.
Oh, interesting.
In some ways. Or we don't get introduced to the characters we're about to meet, the guild and the strange, creature until the second book. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I mentioned the Emperor a minute ago. He receives a visit from the Spacing Guild, whose leader we were just talking about looks kind of like a giant worm with the head of a skinned rabbit. That was my view on it. I don't know. Apparently, the guild has correctly identified the Emperor is making some moves on Arrakis, conspiring with House Harkonnen to attack House Atreides. Now, the guild is perfectly willing to sit back and let all this happen on one condition, that the Emperor makes sure the Duke of Atreides' son Paul dies in the battle. As the guild turns and leaves, the Emperor wonders to himself why they'd want the Duke's son dead. And all I could think here was, you know what probably helped the Emperor? If he had a convent of psychic nuns. I bet they'd be looking to the bottom of this, huh?
I understand why you're throwing this out here because
that's what he has. Right away they show up. I don't know.
The Emperor does have the Reverend Mother, who is the head of a group called the Sisterhood, and these women are actually.
Sorry, should we pause so our listeners can write all this shit down?
Yeah, they might need to. There's a lot happening here, so. We're kind of introduced to the group that is leading the world right now, and there are 2 controlling forces. There is the Emperor, and the Emperor is making political decisions. And then there is the Spacing Guild, which is almost like a business group, a corporate group, but they are led by these navigators, which is that really weird creature with the vagina mouth.
Is that what? I thought it was like a rabbit's mouth.
No, the way that it folds is very, very vaginal in my mind, and it keeps puffing out this weird smoke in a liquid, and I'm like, I was really having trouble. So along with their ability to fold space, they're also able to see a little bit of the future or time. They do not have full control of seeing what's going to happen, but they get glimpses of things. And they have glimpsed that Paul Atreides, the son of the Duke Atreides who runs that one planet we've been introduced to, is going to be a problem for them potentially, and they don't know why. So this is where we get that death order for him. We're about to have this emperor who's going to try to allow the Harkonnens to kill Paul and take over that planet. So we got a lot of political scheming here, and we're 5 minutes in, and this is confusing.
That's what I'm saying. It's so fucking confusing. So those nuns I mentioned a minute ago, it turns out they are a bit more involved in all this than I originally thought. They have been actively engaged in some kind of breeding program over the years designed to create a genetic super being who, according to prophecy, will lead the people of Arrakis to freedom and prosperity. Gee, I wonder if that Paul guy has anything to do with that. Isn't it weird that those space people are so fucking nervous about him?
Yeah.
It's strange, right?
Of course it's going to be Paul. They're spelling some stuff out here super, super, on the nose. They're not giving you any
very
credit.
Clear
right?
exactly what Paul is. Yeah,
they're giving you all of that from the start, and that to me was actually a little bit disappointing as someone who had read through and learned the story in a different way.
For me, it was helpful. I don't know, honestly,
and that's
it
fair.
Really was.
That's fair because there was so much fucking going on.
It's so
in the back
fucking
of this.
dense. Yeah. We get to look at Paul in our next scene, and he shows off what sure seem like super being powers when he correctly identifies who was entering his room by sound. There's 3 of them all together. Dean Stockwell with a perm and a Mr. Sinister style diamond forehead tattoo. You read the X-Men comics? Yeah. Some guy with enormous fucking eyebrows. And our old friend Patrick Stewart, who is there to continue young Paul's shield training. Now, Paul is not really in the mood for that, but Peace Stew sets him straight in a fairly hilarious fashion.
Mood's a thing for cattle and love play, not fighting.
I love his energy here, honestly.
I laughed my ass off when I saw Patrick Stewart was Gurney Halleck. He's pretty
a badass
key character.
in this.
Yeah, well, and Gurney Halleck is a badass character in the Dune series, so I was super happy to see that they had cast Patrick Stewart in that role. The good part we're about to get now is we're going to get a training session between Patrick Stewart and
this fucking shield training.
Oh my God.
I cannot even explain how shitty this is. It looked like 2 monochromatic Minecraft characters just swinging their rectangle arms at each other. It's so fucking bad. But it's so bad, man. Come on. But Paul learns a couple of things here. First, to keep an eye on his enemy's weapon instead of just focusing on his own attacks. Turns out Peace Stew could have gutted him like a fish if he wanted to. And second, a whole bunch of information about the many dangers that exist on Arrakis. There's the Harkonnens, of course, who they're going there to battle, but also the planet's native people, the Fremen, whose eyes are bluer than blue because of overexposure to the spice melange. And let's not gloss over Arrakis' most famous rumored residents, the planet's giant sandworms, whose impressive length and massive girth is whispered about in hushed tones by all the women of the galaxy.
I like that reference you made there. I gotta go back to these shields. This has to be one of the worst digital effects I have seen in my entire life.
It's real bad.
It may be the worst.
On a scale of 1 to Tron, I give it wait, is Tron good or bad? I don't even know.
Tron's good. Original Tron was
on a scale of 1
good.
to Tron, I give it a -3.
Unconscionably bad. The shield effect is so bad, you can't even see the actors behind it. It completely obscures them, and you get pixelated squares attacking each other. They could have just put a fucking light around them or something, and it would have been way fucking better than this.
After a bit more training, young Paul pays a visit to his father, played by Jürgen Prochnow, who we saw in Judge Dredd earlier this season, who speaks in very philosophical terms about the need for change and to experience new things. Prochnow ends this monologue by telling Paul,
"Without change, something sleeps inside us. The sleeper must awaken."
And apparently he takes that literally, as we cut from there right to a scene of Paul sleeping. Because after all, it wouldn't be a David Lynch movie without a dream sequence. Dude needs dream sequences all these fuckers need the spice melange. He can't survive without it, honestly.
You know what? I would say the dream sequences were the prime thing that made me know Lynch was in charge of this film.
All of his movies have dream sequences.
I thought that was interesting. I actually had a bit of a problem with Paul's casting. So first time we talked about it at the start of the episode.
Kyle MacLachlan?
Yeah. So
Bit of a dandy, I feel.
Oh,
Can you still say dandy? I don't even know.
I don't. Yeah, no, you can't. But we're gonna go with
Hair like a fucking helmet. I'd kill for that hair.
Good hair. He went
Great
on
hair.
to star in a lot of really good stuff and had it long and still has a good career. He's popular again right now because of the Fallout series.
And wasn't he the guy in Twin Peaks that I imagine?
was.
That? Is
No, he's
Lynch?
absolutely,
He clearly
yeah.
made an impression on David Lynch.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely the guy in Twin Peaks. So yeah, he's done a lot. But he was too old for this part for me. He's supposed to be 15.
Oh.
The only thing that makes him feel like a child is maybe the shittiness of his acting in many of these parts. When he's training here, when he's training here with the other guys, and when he's talking to his father, I mean, Prochnow is pretty great,
but he doesn't look that. He looks like fucking 3 years older than him. But speaking of young Kyle MacLachlan, Paul wakes up to the sound of one of those nuns and his mother talking about the breeding program and the prophecy and the super being. And when they realize he's listening to him, the nun, who looks very stern, summons him to his mother's chambers, where she tests his ability to control his instincts or something. This is the point where things start getting a little choppy for me. I'm not totally sure what's happening.
So the way that this test works is she's going to make Paul put his hand into a box. And the box is going to stimulate his nerves to make it feel like his hand is fucking burning and melting off.
Is the box doing that? Or is it, she has like a needle thing on her finger, and
No.
I couldn't tell if that was causing the hand
No,
sensation?
it's the box. The needle thing on her finger is literally a poison needle. And if he pulls his hand
she's gonna
out
break him.
before
Yeah.
she gives him permission, she will kill him. That is how the test goes. The ganja bar, it's called in the story. But that is how the ganja bar goes. If you pull your hand out of this pain thing, but what she's learned is Paul can hold his hand in there longer than any woman in history has ever dealt with
Any
pain.
woman in history?
Well, they only give it to women.
Oh, okay. I
Right? So
was
they
like, wait
only
a second.
they only
Yeah.
give it to the sisters,
Gotcha.
right? So he actually passed this test better than any human. And what they're trying to show is, and they've already laid it up for us anyway, they're starting to tell you that he is going to become this like supreme being.
He's the
on
one.
the planet. He is the
Yeah.
one. He is
that.
he is
that
exactly,
that is
yeah.
very clear because
Yeah.
he does pass this fucking hand oven test, whatever it is. So this head nun charges him with a different task, which is to retrieve something called the water of life, which they say comes from the bile of newborn sandworms. This is apparently a pretty tall order, as the nun tells Paul.
Many men have tried.
They tried and failed?
They tried and died.
But it has to be a man that gets it, see, because the water of life is stored in a place that's terrifying to women. You know, because there's probably mice or spiders there or something.
God damn you.
Come on.
Motherfucker, that's pretty good. The overacting of Paul here is fucking atrocious.
It's not good, yeah.
He is really struggling. The effects we get of his hand melting away in his visual is very David Lynch. We have a lot of images layered on top of each other and like melting, kind of grotesque mixed in with emotions, which feels very Lynch.
It's
to me.
Lynchian, very much so, yes. Even as like an early in his career, it's very clear what he's doing here.
And it's working. Like that part actually like communicates his pain and feeling really, really well. If only Paul could carry it through the rest of this, right? Like the visuals are doing way better than the acting.
But there's some movies there where that's the thing. They cast a guy who's like, this is going to be the guy, and he's not really the guy.
Yeah, and maybe they thought
Shia
it
LaBeouf?
I mean,
I know that's your boy.
He's my boy. Did he pull it off as next Indiana? No, he clearly didn't.
No,
if that's
not.
where we're going. He
Our
didn't do
most
that.
listened to episode ever.
Really?
People
Crystal
loved our take on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a
we
big
had a
one.
good time with that, I think.
I agree, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say I had a good time with the movie.
Well,
but
it's
I had a
just
good
like
time.
this. I feel like, you know what? I think there's a lot of similarities between this movie and Crystal Skull.
I don't necessarily see that, but okay. It's time for us to pay a visit to Gaiety Prime now, home of the House Harkonnen, and their fairly disgusting
Oh my
leader.
God. The Harkonnens are
This-
pretty gross.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
dude has what looks like pus bubbles all over his face. We actually see a doctor or something working on them in this first scene, but whatever this treatment is, it is not working. And this guy also has a what sure seems like a predilection for murdering young men and also raping them. I have no idea what he does to the kid who delivers the flowers here, but whatever it is not good.
You're very good at the description here. For someone who hasn't read the book, you've kind of nailed.
Does he nail that kid in the book?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So Baron Harkonnen is the complete opposite to our Duke Atreides. They are the two enemies who are powerful people in the universe fighting over control of Arrakis. The Harkonnens are disgusting, though, right? Duke Harkonnen is this massively gross fat man who uses a machine to float him around.
He has a floating suit.
He can't physically move anymore because he's too fat. And
I
disgusting.
didn't know that. He's not that fat. They could have found a fatter
He should have
guy.
been. He should have been.
What was Orson Welles doing in 1984? Was he still alive? I don't know.
I don't know, but he might have been the right person for this. Or when you describe Orson Welles here, I think that is an appropriate description of what he should look like. We also get an introduction to his two nephews.
It's Sting and that other guy.
Yes, I don't know who the other guy is.
I don't either.
He has one nephew who's a bit of a fatter, an angrier, violent guy, and we have Sting, who is the skinny, sexy guy. And I don't know how you want to describe it.
Yeah, no, that's true. The fact that he's his nephew though raises some questions for something we see later in the movie. I feel.
Oh yeah, there's definitely some incestish.
I want to make sure it wasn't just me. Okay,
No. These are a part of the story in the book, and so they're basically right now building the opposite to the Atreides. We've met Paul and his father, and they're
normal relationship.
Normal relationships. They are looking to make the life of the people they work around better and stronger, and then we're sent to the Harkonnens, who are disgusting and
they're vile
characters.
They're vile people. Yes.
Yeah.
And he wants his nephew Sting and the other guy to do something. I can't follow this shit. But his main goal is to take over Arrakis in order to become master of the universe, because he who controls the spice controls the universe. He makes that very clear. But it seems like he may have also been trying to avoid a battle by backdooring a deal with Jurgen Prochnow. You know, when he wasn't trying to backdoor that flower boy.
Oh, God, fuck.
What?
I mean, the deal he was trying to give the Atreides was not something he was going to actually own up to, as we've seen.
They reject it anyway.
They reject it anyway.
Fuck no.
But you're right. He is someone who's willing to do anything, both politically and or militarily, to keep that power. We're going to transition from the Harkonnens back to the Atreides. They are going to be given a role now to go take over control of Arrakis from the Emperor.
It is time to travel to Arrakis now, as Paul, Jurgen Prochnow's lady, and his tiny dog all board some totally realistic-looking spaceships and make the lengthy journey thanks to the Spacing Guild folding space for them. Speaking of totally realistic, how about these special effects?
Oh, God.
The space folding, you like that?
Oh, it's fucking brutal. This isn't described at all in the book. They talk about folding space, but there's no descriptions of it. So this is purely the imagination of David Lynch and the rest of the creative crew here. And I don't really buy it.
It's a little choppy.
It's pretty rough. There's also no mention of the dog.
This dog plays a prominent role, and I don't understand why.
It really confused me and bothered the fuck out of me. I was like, why is this pug running around all of this film for no reason?
Can I tell you something, too? People online fucking love the dog. Because I googled, what is this dog? And there's so many things about it. I don't understand it whatsoever, but whatever. We get some more history here thanks to a voiceover from, I guess, the princess. I'm not totally. She's narrated the whole time.
Yeah, she's narrated for the whole time.
But back in the modern times, one of Paul's guys tells Jurgen Prochnow a theory that could completely sway the battle that's about to come. He believes it's possible, nay, probable, that the Fremen are a much larger presence than they ever imagined, and that they control Arrakis and may be willing to pledge their loyalty to Prochnow and the Atreides people.
This is actually all quite well done here. The person you're talking about who gives him that information is a character called Duncan Idaho.
Idaho? I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, his name is Duncan Idaho.
Jesus Christ.
He has a pretty prominent role in the story.
Not in this story.
Not in this one. They actually kind of do him dirty here, I would say. They don't give Duncan quite enough
Justice
here.
for Idaho. His last name's Idaho.
But he goes, and basically his goal was to head to the planet early to build relationships with the Fremen, the people who occupy the planet, the Aboriginal or indigenous community of Dune, of Arrakis, and he starts to build relationships. And this is continued when we meet Dr. Kynes. And Dr. Kynes is what's the actor's name?
Max von Sydow. I don't know if you say his name. Probably, yeah.
He is excellent.
He's a very good actor.
Both as a casting choice and in the Kynes role.
He's great in Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
He's great. No, I don't know.
So he's here to help with the transition from the previous rulers, the Harkonnens, to the Atreides, and he's meant to be there to make sure that things are going well and it's fair.
He's got the spice eyes, though.
So he does. So his eyes are all blue.
Overexposure to the spice melange.
And I actually thought they did a really good job with that. And
a lot of people think the eyes are shitty.
Compared to the rest of the effects in this film,
that's fair.
The eyes are excellent.
Okay.
Right? In terms of the way it's described in the book is that all of the eyes, so the whites and the rest of it, are blue. And I think they do a pretty good job of showing that with him here. They are really hinting hard at the Fremen prophecy. They're trying to tell us about a leader. And you've already determined very quickly because they've
everyone has. They lay it out so clearly.
Yeah.
You know what, though? They're also trying to sort of like hint at the idea that this guy is maybe not on the level. While they're flying around, he's trying to take them on a tour of like the spice harvesting. Paul has a sneaking suspicion that this guy is hiding something about the spice. We got to put a pin in that for now, though, as they spot a sandworm heading for one of their spice harvesters that will force them to spring into action. And that action is pretty much just confined to the cockpit of the ship. That and a few shots of spice miners running 15 feet and boarding it while someone shakes the camera. Underwhelming.
Absolutely. This is one of those scenes where a bit more tension, the worm heading towards them and the harvester and the people who are in danger, would have built a lot more credibility, I think, for Paul and for the Duke Atreides here, because what we're learning is the Duke cares more about people than the spice, which is something that is mind-blowing to the people who are working there.
Fuck yeah. It's fucking shocking when he's like, we got to save the miners. And like, what about the spice? He's like, fuck the spice. Everyone's like, huh? Speaking of underwhelming scenes, not a lot happens in our next one. We get some allusions to Dean Stockwell's backstory, and Paul's mother meets the crew of local servants who will be taking care of her on Arrakis, one of whom either psychically warns her that she's in great danger or is just thinking it. It's impossible to tell with these fucking voiceovers.
The Bene Gesserit mother, the legend. Where is your son? I must warn you, you are in great danger.
I'm like, is she communicating to her or just think? I have no fucking idea.
Yeah, this is a lot here. Dr. Yui, the character with the diamond in his head.
Yep.
Is going to be the one that betrays them. Spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
This is similar to how it happens in the book, but it does feel like weird and unnecessary.
Yeah.
This is one of those where it's not translating well because they have to communicate this to you so that you don't think that like Yui's an absolute like piece of shit. Like you understand why he's making choices.
Yeah.
But they also don't give you enough backstory to actually care.
Well, they allude to his wife dying at the hands of the Harkonnens, essentially. Yeah. But yeah, it's not a lot to go on. You know where things kick up a notch, though? When Paul gets a taste of the spice melange and starts tripping his fucking balls off. He even hallucinates that a floating needle is trying to kill him. That part's real. I don't know.
They lay it on insanely thick here. This is David Lynch himself off, though, right? Like, if like the reason why he liked this story so much was because anytime someone consumes spice, or we're gonna find out the water of life,
trippy dream sequence away.
They trip fucking balls, and all he wants to do is show people tripping balls, and he is the right guy to do that. Like these are effective, trippy like video sequences. They give away actually too much about what's going to happen later.
Do you think so?
Oh well, if you know what's going to happen, they're laid out.
So
they're laid out completely in them. So it's one of those where it's like, oh, you've just shown us everything that's going to happen, but if you're not aware of what's going to happen, you don't know. I guess that's a good balance then.
I guess so. Now, that needle was real. I made a joke that he hallucinated, but it's a real thing. And it almost kills that servant lady who had the warning for Paul's mom, or thought, or whatever. But Paul manages to snatch it out of the air, thus saving her life temporarily. The next time we see her, she is definitely dying. But at least she managed to warn Paul that there was a traitor in their midst, like we alluded to. But that warning does not really help at all, as the traitor shoots Jurgen Prochnow and lowers the shields, thus allowing the Harkonnens to infiltrate the Atreides fortress. It's Dean Stockwell's character, like you said, but at least he got a good reason for betraying them.
I wish to kill a man. Not you, my dear Duke. You were already dead. But you'll get close to the Baron before you die. You'll be tied and drugged, but you can still attack. You can still attack.
Hey, you know how else you could have killed that guy? By letting your Duke win the fucking battle. What the hell, dude? Like,
the Yui character is really, really frustrating. He feels like this is the only way. His wife's been killed by the Harkonnens, and he wants to take revenge. So he sets up the Duke and the rest of the Atreides, yet he's not completely an asshole because he wants to provide Paul and Paul's mom, the one who is a part of the Sisterhood, a way to escape this plan by the Harkonnens. Paul and his mom are provided an out here, but before we get to that, we're going to have some stuff with the Duke and others, right?
Well, first we're going to have the fucking Harkonnens storming the gates, literally. They're blowing up all kinds of shit with flybys while a massive transport ship unloads foot soldiers who breach the fortress walls. And as if things couldn't get any worse, that gross guy has captured Paul's mom, like you said, with an assist from Dean Stockwell. Not only that, but he drops a huge gob of spit on her face just because he can. What a luxury, he says. And honestly, he's not wrong. Being able to spit on a rich person's face, that's, we don't always get to experience that.
No, we don't. He then has Yui, the doctor who betrayed them, come in. And Yui, I think, thinks he might get away with this, or maybe he knows he's not going to. What do they do to the doctor who betrayed the Atreides here?
Oh, no, they kill him right away. This is one of a few quick scenes we get here. The other one being Sting is having fun working over Jurgen Procht now. And that guy Duncan, who you mentioned, is trying to fight like a whole platoon by activating his Minecraft avatar. But the main thing is, yes, Dean Stockwell getting betrayed by the Harkonnens right after he betrayed the House Atreides for the Harkonnens. So that's the end of him. But at least he'll go to his grave knowing that his big poison fake tooth plan will definitely work, right? He'll take care of that, no problem. Yeah.
This is actually a pretty tense and well-written part of the book. And it doesn't come across nearly as well in the movie.
Not even a little bit. Yeah. We're here poking fun at this because it is so shitty.
Yeah. Duncan, Idaho, like you said, gets taken down. A bullet goes through his shield and blows through his head. They're very clear to show this.
I have to ask about this. What is the point of this shield? A slow blade will get through it, but also a bullet will. So what are we doing here? What does this shield block?
It's true. A shield generally stops quick attacking maneuvers and is good in hand-to-hand combat.
Clearly, maybe it was a slow bullet.
Well, that's what it appeared to be.
Like in fucking Tenet.
What's interesting is they kill him here with that bullet and we don't hear anything about it. I think they're setting up a sequel with that shot.
A Duncan, Idaho-centric sequel?
So in the second book of Dune, the character of Duncan, Idaho comes back to life in a complicated way I will not explain here, but is it
a Weekend at Bernie's scenario?
It is kind of a Weekend at Bernie's thing. Yeah, it's a pretty voodoo priestess kind of shit, to be honest. Why include that shit if you're not setting up for a secondary? But maybe this went so poorly, they were like, we can't fucking do this.
Oh, I'm sure this scuttled a whole bunch of franchise plans by the studio.
Yeah.
So Duncan Idaho's dead. So is Jurgen Procht now. Unfortunately, that pussy guy in the floating suit isn't. And he'll be looking for Paul and his mother. They do manage to kill the guys who are guarding them, though, when Paul discovers his psychic voice. I think that's what happens here. And they land on the planet's surface, where Paul grapples with the devastating loss of his father. Or tries to, anyway.
Where are my feelings? I feel for no one.
And that's where I'm at with every character in this movie right now. I don't give a fuck what happens to them. I'm totally lost.
Yeah, so they haven't done a good enough job of building up the Atreides and making you hate the Harkonnens and the Emperor, right? We're in a space where that's not happening. We get a really bad acting spot here with Paul and his mom.
You're really down on MacLachlan's acting, eh?
Fucking awful.
He's not great.
I mean, when that's the main character of your story and it's quite well written in the book, when someone comes across the he's dead from Paul when he realizes that his dad is dead.
This was a bad scene for Paul.
It's fucking atrocious. Like, it's so bad, right? But so he uses his voice and they convince these guys. What we didn't get enough of is in this scene, it's actually really impactful in the book. They're going to rape her.
Oh, God. That didn't come through in the movie at all.
They decide that.
Oh, no, you know what?
Kind of. He lifts her skirt a little bit. He looks inside a little bit. But in the book, they were like, we can't just kill these two. We got to this woman before we kill her, is basically what they decide. And then Paul's voice convinces them to ungag her so that she can be involved in the sex, and then her voice convinces them to kill each other, basically. And so we find out that Paul and his mom survive this exodus into the desert, but things aren't good because they are over what they call the shield wall, a massive wall where society lives, into the desert where only the Fremen are. And the Harkonnen are going to think they're dead and start controlling the planet from their area, What we know, though, is the Harkonnen don't really control the planet. It is the Fremen
Oh,
who have
and
most of the power
yeah.
here, and we're about to get more of this revenge story and into the Fremen.
Yeah, that becomes very clear quickly. They're on the planet's surface, staring up at Arrakis' second moon. Paul reaches out with his psychic powers in another trippy David Lynch sequence in order to try to make sense of why everyone wants to kill him. And does he figure it out? I'm at least 70% sure he does. He realizes the power of the spice. He realizes that it's changing him. He realizes that his mother is carrying his unborn sister in her womb. And he realizes that he must avenge his father's death. The sleeper must awaken, Noel.
Oh my God. Is this the most graphic dream sequence in the entire fucking movie?
They're all fucking graphic. It's David Lynch, man. This is what he does.
The fetus in the pool of
that's
blood
fucking haunting.
here of his...
It like floats towards
Oh
us. That's
my
jarring.
God.
I don't like it.
So that is when he realizes his sister is there inside of his mother. Aaliyah is the character we're going to find out and learn about later, his sister. So we've got the Duke being killed. We've got his son and wife surviving, hoping for revenge, and this is going to set up kind of a lot of the rest of the story. But we get this really silly part where when they survive and get to a place, they also open up a briefcase and it says that we've found plans for weirding modules. Now, you were talking about weirding ways earlier.
Weirding is strange, but I think the key word there is plan, and Paul has got a plan now, I think. But as we know, there are many dangers in Arrakis, and we're finally about to meet the biggest one. It's sandworm time. Now, this scene was a weird mix of passable practical effects and terrible, terrible green screen. And if I'm being honest, I'm not sure which one won out.
So they've done a pretty good job of practical effectsing the worms. And they have done a good job of creating them based on the descriptions in the book. They have the rows of teeth. They have the like scaled sections that fold in on each other. It is a good depiction of the things that are in the story. What is absolutely atrocious is people in green screens around them, like you suggested.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It might be the worst use of green screen
Since Judge Dredd?
Yeah.
Judge Dredd was
worse
bad.
than Judge Dredd. Worse than Judge Dredd. I think there are
What
sections
about the stuff? That kid in the stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Bad shit.
But this is used more liberally. The green screen in this is used frequently, often, and terribly. And it is very, very disastrous to my believability in this fucking movie. So Paul and his mom are out in the desert and they're kind of fucked, right? They're in a very bad place.
Is this when the Fremen show up?
So we're very close to the Fremen arriving. So the way that this works is...
Well, because they escaped the sandworm.
But how do they do that? They have to use this weird
They
sound
do it with
creating
help from
advice.
mysterious Fremen. The
Yeah,
Fremen,
well, that's
it's
true.
like a pulsing thing, and
Yeah.
they have one, and they're hoping it'll distract the worm, and it kind of does, but then the worm's coming for them, but it veers off because a different group, the Fremen, they're doing a pulsar also. It kind of happens out of nowhere. And when I say out of nowhere, I mean there is no one around, and then suddenly there's a lightning strike, and it lights up the faces of dozens of people who are suddenly there. So we know the Fremen are stealthy, but we also know they are no match for something called the Weirding Way, which, if this whole universal domination through spice control thing doesn't work out, would make a terrific band name, don't you think? The Weirding Way? Come on.
Absolutely. The issue I have is very quickly a conflict that takes a long time in the story gets resolved in about 30 seconds of film time because Paul's mother just grabs the leader Stilgar of the Fremen and is like, I've got weird ways and you're going to be fucked if you do anything.
That's exactly right. It turns out Paul's mother is a master of the Weirding Way. Mistress?
Yeah, Mistress of the Weirding Way. Yeah.
Either way, the leader of the Fremen officially offers the two of them sanctuary. Now, this sounds like a dream come true for Paul. And in fact, one of his dreams literally comes true when another member of the tribe introduces herself. It's the same woman who's been popping up in his fucking vision quest, whatever you call them. And judging by the look on Paul's face, there's about to be another sandworm sighting, only this one's in his pants, huh?
He and Johnny do a lot in the story.
Huh?
Yeah, oh yeah. There's a lot of boning down between him and this character as the Book of Dune goes along. They definitely become a couple quickly. We're like a good hour 30 into the movie of a...
Yeah, we're deep into it.
We're deep into it.
We're in the weeds.
There was a very large portion of the book dedicated to him becoming the leader of the
It takes
Fremen.
like 2 seconds, though.
But it takes nothing.
He's right in, yeah.
Yeah, and that really didn't do justice to him showing his worth as like the leader of the group of people who was going to take over the universe.
Perhaps not, but in the movie they clearly accept him immediately, partly because of his attraction to this, what was her name again?
Johnny.
There you go.
Yeah.
And speaking of uncomfortable arousal, the head Harkonnen guy gleefully floating around in his inflatable suit is looking for someone to find Paul and eliminate him, and he's got the perfect man for the job. It's a barely clothed Sting. Dude is basically wearing a hard plastic loincloth and just dripping with either sweat or baby oil, or both. Where did this guy step out of when he enters the scene? A sauna or our mom's wildest fantasies? Is your mom like Sting?
I'm not sure. I'll have to ask her.
I feel like she's the right age. My mom probably is.
Yeah, she probably is.
Yeah.
Sting coming out here in this like futuristic cod piece with nothing else on.
He just stands there with his hands on his hips for like fucking like a minute and a half.
So
what is this?
In the story, they actually build his character up to be the counter to Paul.
Oh, they do not do that in this
movie.
They
don't give him enough time or credit to do that.
He kind of does nothing.
No, there's a whole section of the book that shows him in a like almost gladiatorial arena defeating the strongest people of the universe.
We don't see any of that here. It's all implied.
It's
and
all
not implied well.
No, I absolutely agree that it's not there. So we're missing a ton of the buildup of Sting as Theta Alpha, which means it doesn't pay off when we get to scenes we're going to talk about later.
That's for sure. He does look like he's ready to give it his all here, though. But meanwhile, that one nun really gives her all, sacrificing herself so that her consciousness and knowledge can be transferred into the body of a fetus who may or may not be Paul's unborn sister. It is, right?
By nun, you mean Paul's mom.
Whatever.
So she agrees to go through with it, but in doing so, the child inside of her gains the consciousness of all of the women who also did that throughout time.
You can see why this is wildly inaccessible to a large portion of people.
Anyone who watched this movie would have none of
You
this.
just explained it, and I'm still confused. So this is not easily transferable. I really got to see the new ones now because I'm so curious how they did this in a way that everyone understands, or at least pretends to. Back at the Fremen city, we see that Paul and his dream girl are madly in love, but love does funny things to men. And when Paul goes to give an impassioned speech to the Fremen army about defeating the Harkonnen army, he follows it up with this.
We must totally destroy all spice production on Arrakis. He who can destroy a thing controls a thing.
I'll be honest, that sounds like complete nonsense to me.
So what he's really suggesting is the Harkonnens currently control the planet. If we destroy all of their access to the spice, we control the world.
I get that, but he makes it sound like they're going to eliminate the spice and thus control everything.
Which is wrong and not true to what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
We've learned throughout this movie, and they've had hints at it, that the worms are the creation of the spice.
Well, that becomes very clear later.
And we're going to get that soon. They control the worms.
Either way, the Fremen seem excited about all this, and after some firearm training / chanting, Paul Muad'Dib, as he's now known, and his invisible laser army are ready to take on the Harkonnen. Well, almost ready. First, they need to harness their ultimate weapon, more shitty green screen.
The green screen's awful, absolutely awful. This voice laser sound shooting weapon
that you don't see. They just thrust and are like, "Ka!" and it kills a guy.
It's not in the book. This was decided by David Lynch. I did some research because I was like, why the fuck is their ultimate weapon a voice modulating thing
invisible
they wear?
Laser?
That invisible sound lasers, everyone.
Ka!
Yeah,
Ka!
Which is the entire fucking power of the Fremen and Paul in this movie, and it's fucking insane.
That's not good.
It comes off as fucking bullshit in every battle, and we're about to get a bunch of them because we're going to ramp up here. I know we've been kind of going slowly through what this is transitioning. We're about to ramp into fucking pew 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 battles, and that is how they're going to win because they use their voice to kill, and it made me so angry.
Well, but they do also have the sandworms on their side.
Well, this is a part of it. This is a part of it. So I hate to cut you off. We're going to get the worst green screen because the only way Paul Muad'Dib can become the leader is you're not a man in Fremen culture until you solo ride a sandworm.
Yeah.
If you cannot,
you've got to take that sandworm.
You have to get your 2 hands on it.
You got to wrap
your hands around it,
sandworm.
and you got to guide it in. You got to get your hooks in it, and then you got to get it where you want it to go. And if you cannot do that, then you're not a man. And so Paul's going to show that he's a man by riding a fucking sandworm.
He rides it so hard.
We get the worst green screen it continues throughout, but the worst green screen effect in the entire set of this movie,
him riding that sandworm,
are people riding the worm,
bad.
right?
Yeah,
it is absolutely the worst.
Yeah. But with the sandworms on our side, Paul and the Fremen start laying waste to the Harkonnen, and they continue laying waste for the next 2 years as Paul's sister matures at a stirring rate, or so the voiceover tells us. But back on planet Catan, oh, fuck. The Emperor is under major pressure from the Spacing Guild to get the spice mining industry back up and running. Little do they know that Paul can hear everything they're saying, compliments of some weird, like, pay-dripping wipes that bounce us back and forth. So what is he going to do now?
We're now here where Paul and his army of Fremen, they're planning a massive attack to take out the Harkonnens and gain control of the entire planet.
They sure are. And so the Fremen tie up Paul at his request and drag him to the middle of the desert, where he drinks the water of life and heads off on yet another psychic adventure where he figures out the connection between the worms and the spice and starts crying tears of that nun's blood. But don't worry, he's 100% getting into that no women allowed zone. And when he returns to reality, it's with a brand new pair of glowing blue eyes and a triumphant message for his father. The sleeper has awakened. Fuck yeah, we did it. Wait, there's still 20 minutes of movie left? What are we doing here?
So he's gone for like a month after he takes that. They actually thought he was dead. In the real story, he drinks that water and they think he's... In the movie, he's awake in like...
30 seconds? Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah, in the book, he's dead for a fucking month. They're about to go take out the Harkonnens. Sister's involved. She's seen all the future. He's seen all the future. What can go wrong here? This is going to be fucking glorious.
Well, I guess they really wanted to bring this into its conclusion, or at least give Sting something to do. So they have all the Fremen fighters charge out, and before you know it, they're getting in a position to launch an attack against the Emperor, all while Paul watches through his high-tech binoculars. Now, I figured he was going to send in the worms here, and Lord knows there are a lot of worms, but instead he sends his sister in to talk to the Emperor first.
Poor Emperor. I'm afraid my brother won't be very pleased with you.
Silence! Kill this child. She's an abomination.
I agree. This little girl is freaky as hell. Get her out of here.
Aaliyah is a fucking cool character in the book, where she shows up, small child, being like, "You fucking dicks! My brother's about
She's
to
very
come.
confident.
My brother's about to come."
Yeah, that's right.
And they're like, "What are you talking about, little girl?" And it's about to happen.
Well, yeah, with just over 50 minutes to go, it's time for the big battle. Paul and the Fremen are going to take advantage of a massive storm that'll render the Emperor's air support useless. Now, he still likes their chances on the ground, but he has no idea about the sandworms or the Fremen's military might. And sure enough, Paul and the Fremen triumph after a bunch of invisible laser blasts and some visible ones. I'm not sure what happened there. It seems kind of like a mistake.
This battle sequence sucks ass. I actually felt like the mechanical depiction of the worm crushing the others was okay, but all of the shots of them green screen on the worm shooting invisible lasers down is like 10 minutes of sadness for me.
We've talked about this. The green screen scenes are just inexcusable. They're really bad.
We're getting balance between that room with Aaliyah, the creepy girl, and the Baron, and we are the battle. They keep kind of like flopping back and forth here. The battle is going well for the Fremen and Paul, though. They are winning this battle.
They are, and Paul does get an assist from his freaky sister, like you just mentioned. She opens the valves on Pussface's floating suit, and that sends him flying out a hole in the wall and right into the mouth of a sandworm. But there's still one bad guy who needs vanquishing, and that's Sting, who, again, really hasn't done much of anything so far, but he challenges Paul to a good old-fashioned knife fight. So what do you think? Is this going to be his big moment or what?
That moment where Baron Harkonnen flies out of a hole created through laser shots out of nowhere.
World class effects.
Oh my God.
Come on.
I was just fucking screaming at the screen.
Let's get to the knife fight.
It comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it ends quicker than you could ever imagine. Kyle MacLachlan turns it on him and fucking jams his Chris knife right through the neck and throat of Sting, and it is all over. This does kind of happen in the book, but it is way more effectively described and like put forth.
I feel like that's an apt description of everything that happens in this movie, which is that it was better described in the book. But either way, when the dust settles, Sting does have a knife sticking through his neck, and Paul is standing tall. And a closing voiceover tells us that he brought peace and love wherever he went, leading the people of Arrakis to true freedom. But he's got one more trick up his sleeve, which he reveals after a final speech.
God created Arrakis to train the faithful. One cannot go against the word of God.
And with that, he opens his mouth, calling forth a wind that, when combined with the piercing blue of his eyes, causes rain to fall in Arrakis for the first time in centuries. And with the prophecy fulfilled, we fade out to a very old-fashioned set of credits. Do you like that, or what? Come on.
I don't think I can sigh loud enough for that ending.
You didn't like it?
So
I thought it was nice. It's raining on the desert. Come on.
So he wins.
Clearly.
He wins the fight in the book, and he marries Orlan, so that
Who the fuck is Orlan?
the princess of the emperor.
Oh, Orlan?
Yeah, the one who is narrating the entire thing.
Ooh, Virginia Madsen. I like that.
He marries her to become the emperor of the universe.
The master of the universe?
Kind of.
We should watch that movie.
Oh, I would love to.
That's a
I
more
would
fun
love to
movie
watch
than
that. I would love
this.
that.
Yeah.
And then he sends his Fremen out to basically like clean up the world. But the fact that it rained on Arrakis at the end of this movie was the most frustrating change to the book of anything in the entire thing. It felt almost sacrilegious to what Herbert had written, because if they were planning on a sequel, why would they do that? Because it completely fucks the story moving forward. I think it's time we get to it. I think we get to it. Yeah.
David Lynch would agree with you. And so at this point, we've got to get to our ratings. The way we always do this, we rate the movie on a scale of 1 to 10 two times. 1 to 10 for how bad it is, 1 to 10 for how enjoyable. And the goal is to find movies that are a 10 out of 10 on both scales, or what we call the Crit 20. And for me, having never read the book or seen the new movies, I thought this was quite bad.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Fucking shocked.
There's some great actors in this. Kyle MacLachlan is not one of them.
No, he's fucking
This
not.
was just so fucking heavy. And I feel like the producers of this, they knew that was the case because they forced that voiceover in the beginning, and they forced that guild report and all these things that are supposed to like kind of give you the lay of the land, for lack of a better term. And despite all of that help and assistance they tried to give me, there were still parts of the movie where I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I don't like movies that feel like homework, and this felt like fucking homework. Sting, would he have gotten this role if he wasn't Sting?
Absolutely not. Like, there's no way.
I don't think so either.
No, like, he had, to be honest, he had the, like, kind of body for it, although...
His biggest moment is standing there in the fucking loincloth in the Superman pose while that fat puss-faced guy fucking off over him.
That is absolutely what happens in the book, too, right? Like,
okay, well, that's
Baron
Baron
Harkonnen has a hard-on for his nephew, and that is not untrue in this movie. I think he should have been bigger. Like, if we were being honest, to the
muscle-wise.
Oh yeah, he should have
been.
been.
Let's get a Schwarzenegger in
there. Oh yeah, no,
or a Stallone.
They absolutely described it more as a Schwarzenegger or Stallone type.
Or
character.
who was the Beastmaster? Let's get him in there.
Oh,
huh?
Yeah, okay.
The Beastmaster?
Oh, good throwback there to an old
a fun episode.
Yeah.
Go listen to that one instead of this one. No, I'm just kidding. So between the questionable casting, the very questionable script inclusions, and some of the special effects, I mean, that fucking shield training, I can't give this a 10 for how bad this was, but I have to give it at least an 8, and that's what I'm going to go with. So, fuck, man. I have this as an 8. How about you?
This movie's fucking bad. Obviously, my biggest problem with this is trying to write a screenplay for a book and put something that is so immense into 2 hours and 15 minutes. Not done effectively here. They gave everything away at the start. The weirding way technology does not exist in the book.
You know, like invisible lasers?
It's
pew pew
sound lasers. It's made through making appropriate sounds with your voice. That was fucking bullshit. The lack of time they spent him building his reputation to become the leader of the Fremen felt like a joke to me. Like, he went from being this piece of shit, don't know nothing kid, to being the leader of the best and strongest army in the world.
He's a rando, and they're all behind him in like 30
no
seconds.
time, right? Green screen effects.
Green screen's awful.
Green screen effects.
That's the era, though.
Might be the worst I've seen and the fucking shields in the like. I don't even know how to describe how bad this
The shield training is fucking awful. It's really bad. How enjoyable though to defend the scale of 1 to 10?
So it did bring me into a visual world of Dune that I was excited to see happen.
Okay.
Did they fulfill my wishes?
Nope.
Not even fucking close.
Didn't
right?
think so, yeah.
So screenplay choices, spell it out too much, hurt my enjoyability. But overall, Dino De Laurentiis is willing to take some fucking leaps. He took a major one here, and I'm
not going to give Dino a pass on this.
It didn't pay off. It
No.
didn't pay off. But some of the practical effects, makeups, and costumes were decent.
I agree.
I actually like some of the world building costumes and the worms at times. I thought they did quite well. Toto's soundtrack.
I would have never known this was Toto.
Ridiculous and hilarious at times.
Unnecessary almost.
I agree, but also funny. P. Stewart.
You love P. Stew.
P. Stew and some of the other classic actors who did a good job enjoyed. I had this as an 8.
Okay.
Does it make me want to watch the new renditions of Dune? A fucking ton.
Same. I agree.
Ton.
Yep. That's fair. I am not nearly as high as you. I actually have this as a 5 enjoyable because having never read the books and not having the backstory, and God bless them, they tried to explain this away in the first part of the movie. I was so fucking confused by so much of this because there's just so much there. And as I tried to kind of wade through it, keeping track of who everyone was and what the historical significance was, it was not an enjoyable experience for me. MacLachlan was fucking trash.
Awful.
Some of the effects, the green screen was really fucking bad.
Worst ever.
But there were some good performances, like you said. There were some good effects, like you said. But overall, I just could not really enjoy this because it was just so much to wrap my head around, and I didn't have the context to wrap my head around it. I'm neutral. I'm a 5. Not good, not bad. Again, a lot of problems, but really enjoyable to hear your take as someone who'd read the books.
I guess that's fair. What about the Dune Hopper, though? What about our beers we had from our brewery today?
So you mentioned beers. We've actually tapped into a second one here that was not the one we were originally going to talk about. We were going to talk about the Solo Trip Single Hop Hazy IPA, which, as you can imagine from the description, is not a beer I was a fan of. It is very IPA-ish. Whatever. The point is, it's a whole bunch of fucking hops. Not for me at all. Not my style. But I recognize how others could enjoy it, and I'm sure you fucking did. But we've also now tapped into a second beer, which is it's called Birdsong. It's a cold IPA. I don't know what a cold IPA is, but it is infinitely more enjoyable for me than the hazy fucking single hop IPA. So really cool brewery, worth checking out, I think. They're new again. It's kind of early stages for them, but based on what I've tasted so far, right up the IPA lover's alley. Am I wrong or am I right?
I really enjoyed both beers we had here.
So I'm right.
Yeah. You're right. This Solo Trip Single Hop IPA, so it features a new hop called HBC 586. Strange, just numbers.
It sounds experimental.
Yeah, just like the shit that happened in this movie, but it definitely has mango, guava, and citrus notes like it suggests. You open your palate, you let a little oxygen in while you're drinking this, open your mouth, let it all in there. You're going to taste some of those fruity notes, and I definitely did. Birdsong IPA was the second one we drank here.
It's a cold IPA.
And I don't know the difference there. It might have something to do with when things were hopped. It wasn't hazy, which means it had a lot more of a clean finish, which is why I think you prefer that to the hazy IPA style. But definitely suggest drinking some stuff from Dune Hopper, less than a year old, but worth buying online or visiting if you're in Prince Edward County. If you're heading to Sandbanks Provincial Park, they're just around the corner from there. Go camping and drink some delicious beer, although I'm not sure you're allowed to drink in provincial parks anymore.
Who the fuck knows? Strong start from them, though. Good brewery. One to keep your eyes on for sure. Speaking of things to keep your eyes on, 2 weeks from now, we are going to be putting our eyes on the sequel to a, I don't want to say legendary 80s horror movie, but a noteworthy one. We're going to be watching Chud 2 in 2 weeks.
Chud 2? Chud. Oh, yes. Oh, my God. I've seen this.
Hang on. You've seen Chud 2, Bud the Chud? Yeah. Have you seen original Chud?
No.
For fuck's sakes. All right, well, that's going to be an exciting one. We're going to have actually a special guest for that episode.
Ooh.
Someone who I know who he's very well versed in the original Chud. We'll see how he feels about the sequel. We hope you'll join us in 2 weeks for that. Before then, if you have not already, please follow us on social media at the BMB Podcast on Twitter and Instagram.
Send us some emails to thebmbpodcast@gmail.com.
Absolutely. We love to hear from you. Thank you for joining us today for Dune. We hope you'll see you again in 2 weeks for Chud 2, but the Chud. Until then, I'm Cooper.
And I'm Nolan.
And we'll see you next time on Bad Movies and Beer.
Keep chugging the water of life.
A world beyond your experience, beyond your imagination.